Good evening. I want to call to order this meeting of the City Council of the City of Manvel for November the 21st, 2022. We are going to begin with our regular session. We have no workshop today. And we have an inspirational reading by Councilmember Acree.
All right.
Our plaid daddy down there.
Thank you. All right. Heroes are those who risk their lives every day to protect our world and make it a better place. Sirens going perfect. Yeah, perfect. Those heroes are the police, firefighters, and members of our armed forces. There's no more. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Will you stand and join me to say the pledges? Excuse me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Texas flag, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, and next we have a public hearing. This public hearing is to hear comments for or against an oil and gas drilling well application from Denbury Onshore LLC requesting to deepen the Limmer J number 12 well, an oil and gas well in the T. Spragging Survey, Abstract 366, City of Manvel, Brazoria County, Texas. All right. Do I have any comments? We'll have 3 calls for comments. We have gentlemen here. If you'd like to address it, if you would like to say something, this would be a time to say it as well. So I'll make a second call for or against, and a third call for or against. All right. Next, we have public comments. A comment card is required. I want to remind everyone that in this period of time and during comments, we accept 3 minutes. And I have 2 people to speak tonight. First, I have Mr. John Rose. Okay, that's a pass. Okay. All right, and next I have Mr. Travis Clark.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
How y'all doing? I'm Travis Clark, and I was here October 3rd asking for a variance for a temporary road for some land I bought off of Delabella Boulevard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we just couldn't hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I was denied my variance because of the material was not fit. That material that I was trying to ask for was a material that I was trying to, something my family could afford to put down at that time. Since then, I got with staff, engineers, and we sit down and came up with another material that would fit and hold up a emergency vehicle, 60,000 pounds. And we drew, Mr. Dan drew a sketch that would fit the 60,000 pounds, hold it. And I went and got a bid, and I got a bid of $76,000. And this is for, this is for the road that's 700 feet to get to my property. This is gonna be on the new Boulevard. Well, looking at the ordinance, I thought I would need to take care of my frontage. I'm willing to take care of my frontage. I can afford that. But I cannot afford to take care of the 700 feet of the city road to get to me, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm asking the city council if there's any way they could help my family out with this financial strain. I don't know too many landowners, single families that can afford to build city roads, especially hundreds of thousands of dollars. I it's been very stressful knowing that we can't build a house there or even drive on it. I don't have a culvert because I need to improve the road first. So we can't even drive on our property right now. So all we can do is watch it from the right of way. So I'm asking y'all, city, please, please, can you help build your city road for me?
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, all right. Slowpoke. 6 in favor, yes. And I just was charging through our agenda, and I apologize. We have a city manager's update.
That's fine.
Moving right along.
No, that's fine, Mayor. I have a couple of items. I'll start with COVID update. We're almost getting to the point that it seems like there's very little COVID in most of the recovered cases or what's happening in the city. We had 9, which is down 1 confirmed case from the last meeting. We were down 2 for a total of 4 probable cases, 15 recovered cases. There was 1 additional person that passed away from some sort of COVID-related illness, and a total of 7,599 cases have occurred in the city of Manvel. But there hasn't been that much in the way of difference in the way in Manvel, except for those that have recovered. One of the things that our fire marshal had provided to me this morning was the KBDI index. Obviously, with the rain that we've been getting, we're down below 400 for the first time yesterday. And then today, well, as of yesterday, but for today. Probably, if the rain continues, which what it looks like, probably by Friday, there'll be multiple days below 400, which would then give either the mayor or the fire marshal the ability to terminate the burn ban in Manvel. And obviously, you're not going to have a meeting later on this week, so it's probable, if the rain continues, that the fire marshal will end the burn ban perhaps as early as Friday. But we'll look at that as well. We'll get the word out through social media. We'll put it on the website and other things if that does occur. December, good. As long as we get the rain, that's the good part. December the 16th from 6 to 8 p.m., we're going to have the city event. The staff has called it Cookies and Cocoa with Santa at City Hall. 6 to 8 on the 16th here at City Hall. We're going to have a sort of a tree lighting that Community Services has been working on. There's a holiday art contest and some other things that the staff has been working on. So it's going to be a really, really nice thing. So those are the things that I have for you tonight.
Thank you. I want to make a special note that HEB will be donating our cookies for our Cookies with Santa. So we're very grateful that they're, and thank you. Very grateful that they are participating in our community event. All right. Now, the regular agenda. Number 1, reconsideration of a subdivision variance request seeking to vary Chapter 62, Section 62-111 additional street requirements for a 5-acre tract of land located along south side of Del Bella Boulevard on the west side of its intersection with Pollard Drive. The subject site abuts the property located at the southwest corner of Del Bella Boulevard and Pollard Drive intersection. Dan?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think actually the applicant did a pretty good job of setting the stage for what he's asking for. This is a reconsideration. It was October 3rd. The council heard this before, and that was the material that they were requesting at the time was a concrete washout material. So the recommendation for denial at that time wasn't necessarily that council shouldn't maybe consider something, but not that. So he's gone back, like he said, and got a couple of different quotes. The one that we would all feel comfortable with is, I think, I don't know if he got more than one estimate, but the one that he provided us with was $76,000 or so. But that's for a 14-foot wide lime stabilized gravel concrete base. And the reason that's important because that's exactly what we would want if we built the road, or when we build the road on top of it. So it wouldn't be wasted material. It wouldn't be something that we'd have to remove, when the thoroughfare comes in. So the other two options that he had that are in your packet were not stabilized with lime, so that really does us no good whatsoever. We'd end up having to rip all that out. Obviously, those are cheaper options, but sort of the punchline to those is he provided the council with those three numbers. We would support option one, I guess is what we're calling it, the 14-foot wide with lime stabilized subgrade. But his variance request now, I think, is a two-part. It's one, would you allow that? And then number two, would you pay for it? So that's different, from what we're normally seeing, because that's kind of a different request. So
The allowance is for what, and the pay for is for what?
the allowance would be, instead of building one half of a concrete curb and gutter road, which we all agree would be difficult, because this is a major thoroughfare, and to make sure that it winds up lining up with everything else, the rest of the road when that time comes, it would be tough. So quite frankly, if you wanted to go that route, I would say we need to escrow that and just hold on to that money. But that doesn't do him any good in the meantime because he needs to get to his property. So if we allow him for the 14-foot wide, lime stabilized subgrade, it's basically a gravel road. The fire apparatus can drive on that, emergency vehicles can drive on that, and it's not going to hamper us in the future whenever it's time to do the thoroughfare on top of it. So that's, I guess, request number one. Would council allow that? Staff does support that request. But part two is, if you would allow that, council, would you pay for it? We obviously don't, I say obviously, Chris, I presume we don't have that budgeted somewhere, $76,300. And again, that's just one number. If this council wanted to pay for that, we'd have to go out for bids and, go that whole route, just like any other capital project. But we have not done that yet, waiting to see if that was something you even wanted to entertain. We're not.
Is there an optional way to look at it? I'm going to show some ignorance here. An optional way to look at it where what would his cost be on his portion of whatever needs to happen without being the city's right of way? Is there any, he said he'd be willing to pay for, am I talking out of school here?
No, I want to make sure. So this is for, if I understand correctly, this is the 700 feet from the end of the current road, city road, to his property. That's all this is for, right? The first 700 feet. So he's obligated to do the stuff in front of his house no matter what, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's not included in this as far as I know, right? That's a whole separate dollar figure? Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm coming in late. I'm just trying to give council a complete picture of what we're going to be voting on.
So if this family waited well over 24 months, the city's going to build that road anyway, right?
We don't have it on our capital improvement plan right now. If Valencia does what it seems like they're going to do and they actually build their portion, that gets really, really close, and it makes sense that we would want to connect the dots there. If we bring that to council in next year's budget, then yes, I would say it's within the next 24 months. That seems realistic. It's a good project, for sure. It's not something that's budgeted right now.
I mean, I hate, go ahead, Kyle.
One of the other things is the 700 feet comes from the east from Pollard Road to the edge of the property that's in question. The property that Valencia owns is, I don't even know, 1,000 feet maybe further to the west of the property. That's where you get to Pollard Boulevard. So you're talking about Pollard Boulevard goes through Blue Water Lakes. It's built through Blue Water Lakes. Valencia is going to build it all the way up to Del Bello Boulevard. And then they're going to turn west and connect it back to Del Bello Boulevard that we built, goes out to 288. They have a very small piece of property that is, I guess, east of where Pollard Boulevard and Del Bello Boulevard come together. Then there's 2 or 3 sections of property that Valencia doesn't own to get to Mr. Clark's property. So there's a section in between that the city's not planning on doing and Valencia's not planning on doing because Valencia doesn't own that property. The way that to get access would be coming from the east, from Pollard Drive to the corner of his property.
Maybe my misunderstanding, but I understood that this portion between Pollard and our section all the way between Pollard, or just call it Pollard and Manvel Parkway, that road was getting done, period. End of
Between
end of
Pollard
sentence.
Boulevard, not Pollard Road. Pollard Road is east, and on the little map, you can actually see it. Yeah, Pollard Drive. That's not Pollard Boulevard that Valencia is building. That's going up in the middle of this diagram.
So we intended to build 100 on our 160 acres, and we didn't intend to build a road between Pollard Drive and our property?
We built it to the intersection of the north-south road that's on ours, and Valencia is actually going to build it from where we ended over to Pollard Boulevard, not Pollard Drive, because they don't own that property. That'll get them into the north part of their property, and it'll go all the way south to the current terminus in Blue Water Lakes.
So this Pollard that I'm looking at on this map in the sheet is not going to is not going to come all the way down to Highway 6?
No, that's a very small 2-lane road. That's Pollard Drive. That's not Pollard Boulevard. Pollard Boulevard is about halfway
So this
between
is the Pollard
cities.
Drive that comes and wraps around section
Yes.
section 5 and
Yes, it
and
actually hits
Lakeland.
Dogwood, or the right-of-way does. It's not built. But that's exactly it.
I have a question, Mayor. So, I think we've had a few discussions about this road, and no matter how it ends up playing off, we and probably Valencia in the future, I'm not saying it's 2 years from now or 18 months from now, because Valencia is a fast developer. They move very fast. We are going to, I feel at some point, going to put that road on our list. There's going to be a lot of traffic going in and out of there. However, let's just say, for argument's sake, that we agree to put this substandard stuff down. We're not doing it in 8 months. We wouldn't be doing it for almost 2 years anyways, because that's how long it takes to make the plan. That's how long it's going to take to get it together, to bid, to engineer it, to see Valencia do their part. You're still talking about, even if we did this and agreed to this type of material, by the time we get to it, you're looking at 18 months to 2 years no matter what. And let's say that's if we were to agree to something like that today. Does that sound about right? Because think of the timeline of how long it takes to build a road and then collaborate with who's going to help us build it. Because almost always, and Kyle, you guys remind me, when we put our money towards, or the taxpayer money towards a big project like this, it's always when a developer is getting close and we kind of negotiate, oh, since you're on that road already, and you have the machines out, and we don't have to pay anything extra, and we can split the cost, let's negotiate finishing that road. That's almost always how it happens. And we are still almost 2 years away from that. Does that sound like, logically, like a timeline anyways?
I believe at the last PD&Z meeting is when the rights of way for Pollard, Dogwood, Charlotte, and Dalbella were approved, when those plats were approved.
Yeah,
And that was last week.
so,
And Valencia is going to be starting from the south. They've already mentioned that their first segments are going to be attached to Pollard Boulevard, which comes out of Blue Water.
Blue Water, and they're gonna go all the way up, because that's, I'm just kinda, I'm gauging them on how they built Pomona, and how fast they move, and how methodically and in order that they move. And if this is gonna be one of those roads, I'm thinking it's almost even premature to discuss this, because, again, even if we were to say yes on this material, let's just say we did, which I'm not saying we would or would not, it would still take that long for us to plan on how this is going to be done, making sure that the pieces fall into place. Does that sound like a logical way that we would do it? Let's say that we agreed on the material, but,
Again, what we're talking about is the 700 feet from Pollard Drive to the edge of the property. This doesn't go across the property, and it doesn't connect to where Valencia is going to build their little piece east of Pollard Boulevard.
because, like I said, we would wait for them to see how far they're going to go.
Well, they don't even own the land in between.
Yeah, they don't. But if we know Valencia and we hope for the best, we always try and throw in all of our resources to try and get it all to connect.
As long as whoever the landowner dedicates the right-of-way.
Correct. But we'll go through all of that process at some point, but it really isn't going to be, because just like Dan says, we don't really like to build a piece if we know it's a major thoroughfare, and then you do this and you do that. We try our best to do it all at once so it lines out perfectly. And this is just kind of one of those roads that's going to end up that way anyways, except that we have a landowner that got there first.
Also, one of the other things is the section that goes from, say, the city's property where the road is built now, you would want to go all the way to Dalbella Boulevard. You would take Dalbella Boulevard all the way to Dalbella Road. Because if you stopped it at Pollard Drive, you would dump everything that's coming off of 288 onto that little piece of Pollard, and that would go on to Spur. They would eventually
I
get
can
on.
picture it goes from here to,
It would go down, yeah. So what you're really going to do is, if you're looking at building the road that's going to open that up, you're going to have to get through all those pieces of property. You'd have to get right-of-way, and that would go all the way to Dalbella Road. That's the only way that you would want to construct it. Because if you construct parts of it past Pollard Boulevard, I don't know where those people are going to go, but they're going to find some way to get through the little streets, and Pollard Drive and Dalbella Spur are not built for significant.
not,
amount
and then
of
we're gonna see all that traffic come through, because it will, and they're all gonna scatter, because once you open the road, everybody knows that it's there.
That's going to be the key.
As the best planners and being prudent to plan correctly,
Is there a way to approach these property owners and see whether they would be willing to be annexed into the mud and have the mud build the roads?
We could ask them. I don't know what they would get out of it. Yeah. Because
would-
then they'd be paying mud taxes. It's unlikely that anytime in the near future, they're gonna get any type of utilities to the far northern end of the development. Just being brutally honest, I don't think that the developer would want to extend the utilities all the way up there when they have.
Not right now, but for, I'm just thinking, and maybe my thinking is ill-conceived, but for this family, for example, if it were me, I don't have an extra $100,000, so put me in the mud and I'll pay the mud taxes, and now I know that road's gonna get built. I mean, this family might not be willing to do that, but I'm just looking for solutions.
Obviously, we could ask the developer and see if the mud would be willing to do that, but my guess is right now, probably not, simply because they got 400 acres that they haven't put the first shovel in.
I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't be willing to do it today, but at least we would know that it would be done, and then if they can put in whatever they need to for now, then that, I don't know.
I think definitely if they were able to acquire more property that's kind of up there in that northern part, then I think you're right. They might be willing to do it then. They've talked to the school district, and the school district bought the 50 acres on DeBella Road at the end of Dogwood. I don't know if that's going into the mud yet, or there's some sort of understanding between the school district and the developer about transferring part of that to build some houses and a school out there as well. And they would get their utilities through the mud, I think, so.
I wanted to make a comment as we're broadening and trying not to broaden, sorry, Bobby, a scope of what this is discussing, which is the Pollard Road. Although I think all of this discussion has to do with not just the planning and the financing of it, and that it is an important road that we are going to have to address at some point. So making this decision, and if the answer that you would be providing, Mr. Clark, is that you believe that we're going to get this done in 6 months, it couldn't happen just because of the logistics of the thing. I just want to say out loud to all of us, it would take a lot, even agreeing to doing it this way versus doing it the correct way, in which our engineers methodically planned and we partnered with our developers, which we always do with such large projects, so that everybody wins and it's a solid road. You're still looking at, no matter what, almost 2 years. And that's if we put it in the budget next year to plan for a year after that. That's methodically the way a city gets planned with such a large project, with a road that is going to have, like you were saying, a lot of construction, waiting to see what Valencia is going to do on the corner, hoping that it all puts into pieces. And this is a Band-Aid that we would be putting on. And again, let's say that we said, you know what, we're going to do this for $76,000 and it will not be unused. How much you want to make a bet? And I'm not an engineer, but I feel like you would say this. 2 years from now, when we get down to it, we're going to have to redo the whole thing because of all sorts of things that happen. Settling, exposure.
I see we're
Rock. Oh, no, well, we did it right then, and now things have happened, and we have to do the whole thing all over again. We just wasted $100,000, and it went all for this, and we're still behind that. Does that make sense? So doing it out of order is not good for the taxpayer. It's not good for our infrastructure. It's not good for the way we plan the city. And does that make sense? Does it feel like that is more how we would go along doing that if we were going to go this route of planning that road?
I guess, and maybe I'm reading between the lines, but if you want it done sooner, you're going to have to do it yourself, essentially, right? I mean, because if it's a city project, it's going to take time to get there. He's got a quote from a contractor that says that he can put down the gravel, the base, I should say, that is the closest thing that we're going to get to actually moving in a positive direction that wouldn't, we're going to look at plans and actually inspect it and everything. This is the same kind of material like we used to go out to like Meridian has used it to go out to their wastewater treatment plant, or Rodeo Palm, Mud 29 had it going out to their water plant for years and years. We've got a couple of gravel roads. So, I mean, it's not unheard of to do that. Worst case scenario, yeah, we have to remove it and compact it and move it around and manipulate it. But at least it's going to be good stabilized material.
I understand that you're you're talking about the project as a whole. Yeah.
Right.
Just if we can we just do the brass tacks of what would it take in our give for this family to cultivate and build on their property? What would it take from us?
Mayor, let me jump in because Jason said it was okay for me just to jump in. And
as you should.
I remember that under the
He's not in charge.
rough proportionality, what the property owner has to do is be what's in roughly proportion to what they would use, which is most cases is what's in front of their property.
Okay.
It shouldn't be his responsibility to do the 700 feet going back to the nearest road that's there across an adjacent property owner. That's usually their responsibility when they develop. Like Jason said, that's a great idea. Convince them to develop, get in the mud. There's a financing mechanism, but the timeline still might not help this gentleman at all. Mm-hmm. So typically, he's got to wait for the adjacent property owners to develop and put in their infrastructure, or convince the city to do it under one of our capital improvement programs, and we have to find the financing mechanism. But typically, that property owner, as this gentleman, would have to wait, or we allow them to go, well, you could do it yourself. I mean, you can put in what we would require to get there, and you can do it yourself if you want to access your property first. But apparently, that's a large cost, and that's why he's got the variance here to try to do with another type of material. But the question is still, the payment, is that really he's really just asking the city to step up our capital improvement projects so that we do it? Or the city do the temporary base? It's a little bit hard to do it in the vehicle of a variance request, because it's not so much it's a variance, it's almost just a straight request to the city of, I don't want to have to wait for a road to get to me, and can you either find a way to get the adjacent property owner to put in that road, which is what Jason's idea was, or can the city do it or come up with a temporary situation until it gets done? It's almost like a straight request rather than a variance, because we're varying a requirement that they don't have to do. They don't have to put in that 700 foot of paving.
Well, it just dawned on me, so we didn't go back and hit this part. So the question that y'all asked before was, okay, what would their obligation ordinarily be? And that would be concrete, curb, and gutter. So just to compare it, that's a little, this $70,000 is about 1/3 of what that concrete would cost, if that helps. So that's way, probably $250,000 that they would be spending if you just held your ground, said, nope, this is what the ordinance says, you got to do what our ordinance says, if that's what you said. So for lack of a better term, it's a give to come down to 70,000. That's easy. That's not coming out of my personal banking account either. But it's certainly less. It's 1/3 from what it was or what it would be, if that helps in your decision making.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, these people bought a piece of property that they can't get to. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
feels like their
the
better
brass
interest
tacks
is to
girl.
hang on to it. And wait for the city to build it. And that's, I mean, I hate for those words to come out of my mouth, but we've got to find a way to, if we can't, we can't. But I hate that that's my answer, is that they should just, wait, because if they wait, then somebody else is going to build it, and they're not going to have to, and then they can go on their merry way. And I think that's a crappy situation to be in.
Well, it's a crappy situation, but quite frankly, you bought a piece of property you can't get to. And therein lies the problem. I was trying to see if there was some possible way for him to have temporary safe access that he would provide to get to his property, but he's not willing to do that. And we don't have budgeted anytime soon, actually, for the city to take care of this. So it's, I've worked it every which way but loose, and it's not coming out, and that's what I don't like. I like to solve problems up here that come to us, and find some way, even if it's, kind of wiggling around and doing something a little unusual or something that we haven't done before. But we're not coming up with that.
Well, I think the risk that anybody has that if we do something like this is that,
Yeah.
we might say, this is fine, that somebody can do that, but then they end up building their home and then their insurance company says, we're
Yeah.
not gonna insure your house.
Yeah.
I would hate to put somebody in that situation too.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're a little bit out of order now, so we just need to, yes, sir.
The other thing is that I would bet that the police, fire, and EMS have an obligation to respond to it if there's somebody out there and they call 911. It's not like they're not going to just simply say, well, there's not a road out there, and he agreed that he's not going to need anything if there's something that happens and there's a house down an unimproved dirt road right-of-way. The police and the fire and the EMS are going to have to go down there.
Okay. Yes, sir, anything else?
The only thing I was going to ask is it a possibility to, there, in my mind, there are two variance requests here. Number one, would the city consider allowing this other material that we talked about? And I don't know if we've gotten there yet or not, but if the city were okay with that, but we're not okay with spending the funds to do that, at least then he could go away from here knowing, well, if I want to do it, I've got a variance in hand, I'm just going to have to come up with $70,000 or whatever, as opposed to if we just turn the whole thing down, and that's me assuming that you would approve the gravel, and I don't know if that's the case or not.
Well, that's where I was trying to get. I was trying to get something, some way to show that we are working with your family.
Can I give you that possibility?
Yes.
That's something?
Yes.
Given that the city attorney has raised questions about procedurally whether this is a variance or this is a flat-out request, then rather than we rule on it tonight and bury it, have its funeral and bury it, then maybe we should table it, let them come back to the city and come up with what this is that we're actually voting on, whether it's a variance or whether it's do you follow what I'm saying? Because now you're looking like you got.
I mean, if you, like Dan said, if the first part is a variance, that at least lets him know. And then the second part is somehow he wants the council to vote on whether we're going to fund it or not. I mean, that's really not really, I see as a variance from a specific section of the subdivision ordinance, but it would just come back it would just come back with almost the same question, just phrased differently.
So let's just vote on the first variance, and yes, ma'am.
And this is just because I want to pay attention. Materials, I know that's one, and I'm clear that you have evaluated this material and you're okay with it. Staff is okay with it. It is something that will work because we can reuse it possibly for the future. And you mentioned something about 14 feet. That's what's required. Is that the minimum required? It can't be anything smaller for like one car. I'm just asking to make it a better cost prohibitive. I'm just curious.
Let me answer. Half of a 4-lane divided road, the paved portion of that is 28 feet. So half of that is 14. That would be one lane. It'd be a quarter of the entire width.
Gotcha.
Let's put it
Okay.
that way.
And that's what I was confirming.
So
That
that's
was
why-
it 2 or was it just
That's
one?
why we would say 14 is one lane of the 2 on the south side of the median.
Okay.
Okay,
And that's what I was confirming.
let's come back to brass tacks. We are, let's not recreate the wheel here. Let's vote on the variance. If we are going to allow for this gentleman to use the substandard material at this time, and we're not even addressing the city paving or accepting the cost. We are voting on the variance for him to put in, even though he says he can't afford it, the city's not willing to pay for it, but at least he walks out of here with a solution if he can find a way to get those funds. So I will make that motion, that we accept the variance for this family to use the substandard material. Is that's not the way we should phrase it, is you're making a face?
Let's see if we could say, consistent with option one in the packet there, just
Yes.
because there's 3 different options. So if we could stick to option one.
It's a
Okay,
14-foot wide, temporary, low, lime stabilized subgrade.
thank you. That's my motion, okay. Yes, yes. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, we have a 5-1 vote for the variance. All right, moving right along. Consideration and possible action to approve a variance from the Manvel Town Center PUD Exhibit E4, Project Plan Description, C, Development Guidelines, 5, Parking for parking lot one-way aisle, minimum width.
Sure. Y'all are probably missing Jessica right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with me on that.
No, we thought,
Awfully quick.
we thought you were
jumped on
missing
that.
Jessica.
Well, she's deer hunting, so I'm a little jealous. Yeah.
Deer head.
This one's a little bit easier, I think. Okay, so this is Manvel Town Center.
Okay,
The specific request is coming from HEB, but it really applies to all of Manvel Town Center. So they hard-coded some parking lot, more than guidelines. They hard-coded some stuff into their PUD, some dimensions that have turned out to not work for what they want to do. So ordinarily, whenever something like this happens, and I'll give you a great example, this happened with the school over in Meridiana. They wanted to have some one-way aisles, and our minimum requirement now for one-way aisles is the same as a two-way aisle. It's 25 feet, no matter what kind it is. Well, the school said, hey, we've got a little bit of an issue with that because we want to be we want our parking movement to be very controlled. So we want these particular lanes to be one way and one way only. So we don't want people to get confused and go the wrong way. So we need a smaller dimension on these particular areas. Great. Because that's written in the design criteria manual, we can approve it through a modification procedure. It's no problem. It's done at the staff level. Unless the staff says, no, I think that's above our pay grade, so to speak, then we can bring it to council and they can sort of plead on the mercy of the court. So this is not uncommon for this kind of thing to happen. The reason it's different in Manvel Town Center is because, again, they've hard-coded that into their PUD. So what they're asking for, quite frankly, staff, we've all talked about this ad nauseum. We're okay with it, what they're trying to do. They've got angled parking, 60-degree parking, and so they want to bring in that particular aisle where those angles are. It makes good sense. If you've been, and I love wide parking aisles, but if they're so wide that they confuse the driver, then they wind up coming, the salmon, going up the wrong way there, and then it's just chaos. Do you come the wrong way and try and go back into the parking lot like you're supposed to? So what they're asking for, again, staff is okay with. It's just the mechanism. How do we get them there? I can't do a design criteria modification, so we're actually having to do a variance to their PUD, if you will. So that's the request. They probably have a presentation, but it makes really good sense unless there's something that we're missing.
Move to approve is recommended.
I'll second.
all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, yeah.
Sorry if you spent the time on a PowerPoint, but
All right. Consideration and possible action regarding an application for an oil and gas drilling permit from Denbury Onshore LLC for the Limmer J number 12 well, an oil and gas well in the T. Spragging Survey A 366, City of Manvel, Brazoria County, Texas.
So this is a well it's an existing well that back in 2011, Aspect Energy owned this well. Aspect came to the city and asked the city to abandon the well and release the bond that we had on file with it. In 2015, Denbury purchased a big chunk of wells from Aspect, this being one of them. So now Denbury wants to come and reactivate this well. They want to dig it deeper. Is that what you're wanting to do? So tonight, the request is, one, they paid the additional funds to expedite this process. Typically, you have a hearing process where we have to publish notices and send mailings out. There's nothing around this area. It's pretty much just wells. So they did pay the $5,000 to expedite that. City Council tonight can decide if that, for whatever reason, you wanted to have the notices sent out, if you didn't feel comfortable with bypassing that option, but you did have the hearing on the agenda, it just wasn't published in the paper or sent to any property owners. The other option tonight, if you approve it, is setting the bond. The bonds that we've had in the past have ranged anywhere from, the last one you guys did was a $150,000 bond, all the way up to one that we did back in 2019, which was a $500,000 bond. That one, I will say, was a brand-new well that was being dug, not one that was an existing well, just being dug deeper. So if you guys approve the permit this evening, what will happen is they will continue to get us the bond, their proof of insurance, then they have to get their heavy haul permit. Once they've got that, then they can come and get the permit for this and the notice to proceed. If you have any questions, they're either here, or I could try to answer those.
The one other thing that I would point out is, this is off of Oilfield Road on the east side of 1128. And it's, like she said, it's out in the old Texaco oil field, or now the Denbury oil field. There isn't anything around there.
So Bobby, are you comfortable with us not posting and?
I mean, that's the process to a T, and that's the way other people have followed that same process.
Okay, good. All right. So are we voting on this in two sections?
So what tonight's motion, if you want to approve it, would be to approve the permit with whatever bond amount that you guys want set. Again, the one we released back in 2011, that was a $100,000 bond. So you've had some at 100,000, some at 150. The brand new drilling wells were 500.
Okay. Pick a number, any number.
You need a motion and include a number in it, if
Okay.
you want to approve it.
I'll second. To pick a number?
To approve the application
Yes.
and to set a bond amount.
I would make a motion to approve the application with a $500,000 bond, is that it? Or five, right?
If that's what you want to say.
Yeah, that's my number.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's a lot of money, you guys. Okay.
That, Lorraine? Yeah.
Well, I'll allow, yeah.
I guess I was just want to clarify the statement that was made, the well is never plugged or inactive, so I don't know about the well's always been inactive as well, so it was never abandoned. So I'm not sure about our predecessor's release of the bond, but my understanding was that the bond should have already covered this well. There may have been something that happened with the predecessor, but that happened before us. Clarify that. With Allegiant, or no, it was not Allegiant, it was
Aspect.
So
I actually thought we were just here for a deepening permit. I didn't know there was also a bond associated with it.
correct, and I explained that when I spoke to the lady on the phone that's been handling everything, was that tonight they would set that bond amount, and that was the purpose with part of the permit. But when Aspect came in 2011, their exact wording was they were going to surrender the wells. Now, it was on the list that you guys brought in when you guys purchased the field of, I think there were 50 of them inside the city limits. That negotiation was totally between you and Argent on what they did in the past or what you guys were buying, but as far as we knew, it had been abandoned. Victoria did say you guys did not, it wasn't ever capped, so. It's an active lease. There are active oil and gas producers. Correct. And they only released like 7 of them. Out of the whole field, there was only 7 that they abandoned, that they also sold to y'all after they abandoned them. So they didn't abandon the entire 50-some-odd ones that are in that same field. Does that answer your question?
Okay. All right. We're at mayor and council comments. Does anybody have any comments?
As we go into this Thanksgiving period, I'd like to remember the families from Club Q and from Pulse, that to their families who lost their loved ones in terrorist acts.
And I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families and your dinners, and let's be thankful for all that we have. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to join.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed?